watching News Channel 15.
Thanks for staying with us after the game tonight. I'm Mo Lengi. The U.S. Senate met in a special weekend session Saturday. Just a few hours ago, senators voted to move the proposed health care overhaul to a full-scale Senate floor debate, a major step for President Obama's health care plans. Voting along party lines, Democrats overcame stiff Republican opposition, moving the proposal slightly closer to a reality. ABC's Vic Ratner reports.
The yeas are 60, the nays are 39.
Thanksgiving recess. Vic Ratner, ABC News at the Capitol.
Now, South Carolina's U.S. Senators Lindsey Graham and Jim DeMint both voted against the bill. Some folks are fired up about Saturday night's vote, continuing to call the process a government takeover, including some medical professionals. Doctors in North Carolina rallied against the plan tonight, saying they want to send a clear message to Congress. And this was part of a national rally called the Million Med March, obviously a spin-off of the Million Man March. This was organized by physicians to say this health care reform bill is not the answer.
If you go to a hospital, you have a procedure done, they use a scalpel, they're going to charge a patient about $250 for that scalpel. That scalpel really costs about $5. So what the government's going to do, it's going to now take and insure 30 million more people, but they're still going to buy a $250 scalpel.
The doctors at that rally say the current bill does not address the skyrocketing costs in their field. With holiday travel just around the corner, health officials are stressing precautions to avoid spreading illness as families prepare to gather from different parts of the country. The H1N1 flu is declining, though it still is widespread in most of the country, even as more vaccines are produced. And to prevent the spike over the holidays, officials say people should only travel if they're feeling well. Also, wash your hands often, cover coughs and sneezes with a tissue or a sleeve, and they stress to get vaccinated. As of yesterday, 54 million doses of the H1N1 vaccine were available. South Carolina's Department of Health says between September 1st and November 14th of this year, 35 deaths and 756 hospitalizations were linked to the H1N1 virus in the Palmetto State. More Americans will be traveling away from home for Thanksgiving this year, though according to AAA, most people are making their holiday trips by car. The group says about 33.2 million people will travel by car this year. That's a 2.1% jump from 2008. The numbers were based on a survey of more than 1,300 households. Air travel was expected to dip nearly 7%, with about 2.3 million people booking holiday flights. That drop continues a decade-long trend of fewer people traveling by air for Thanksgiving holiday. Still, AAA officials say the slight increase marks a positive change in consumer confidence. Well, a wet way to wrap up the weekend, as it looks like showers are moving into our area. Let's go ahead and check in with First Alert meteorologist Kristen Van Dyke. Kristen?
That's right. Rain will be likely into Monday. We'll take a look at that with Futurecast, and I'll have that 7-day forecast coming up later.
All right, we'll see you soon. Thanks, Kristen. One person has been arrested in the shooting death of an Horry County man Friday night. Meanwhile, police say another suspect remains on the loose tonight. Police say they found 28-year-old David Lane shot to death in his home on Oscar Lane, just outside of Little River, around 5 o'clock Friday evening. Horry County Coroner Robert Edge says Lane was shot several times. Police say they've arrested this man, 25-year-old Lamarcus DeCarlos Vereen of Longs. He's been charged with murder. Authorities are still looking for 19-year-old Quintney Eugene Graham of Atlantic Beach. They say he also goes by the names Gino and Esco. If you have any information, you're asked to call 843-915-TIPS. A man wanted for attempted murder in North Carolina could be in South Carolina. That's according to the FBI, and that begins our look around the state tonight. Authorities are looking for 36-year-old Philip Thomas Williams, also known as Scoob. Detectives say Williams shot a woman in the stomach as she was making a deposit at an ATM in Cary, North Carolina 2 years ago. Witnesses say they saw Williams leave the scene with 2 other people who have since been arrested. Aside from the attempted murder charge, Williams is wanted by the FBI for unlawful flight to avoid prosecution on attempted murder charges. If you have any information, you're asked to contact authorities. Police in the Midlands say these 2 men picked a person at random along the side of a road and then killed that person. The Lexington County Sheriff's Office says 22-year-old Philip Jackson and 20-year-old DeMarcus Thomas have been charged with murder. Deputies say the men stopped 20-year-old James LeBrand III as he walked along a road near West Columbia more than a week ago and asked LeBrand to come up to their car. That's when they say that they shot LeBrand in the head. The 2 men are also facing several other charges unrelated to the murder. A woman convicted of suffocating a baby in her South Carolina home daycare 11 years ago has been sentenced to 22 years in prison. 42-year-old Andrea Person was found guilty of homicide by child abuse in the 1998 death of a 1-year-old boy. Police say Person confessed to the killing of the toddler in her Columbia home, but Person's lawyers argued that she was bullied and intimidated into signing a false confession. Prosecutors are also considering trying her in 2 other infant deaths. 36 people have been charged for involvement in 2 South Carolina cockfighting rings. Attorney General Henry McMaster issued the 36 arrest warrants after a 13-month undercover investigation of the operations in Williamsburg and Lexington counties. The State Department of Natural Resources was also involved in the investigation. Now, cockfighting is a misdemeanor in South Carolina, punishable up to 1 year in prison or a $1,000 fine. Back in 2005, McMaster led an effort to increase the state's maximum penalty from 30 days to 1 year in prison for a first offense and a max penalty of 3 years in prison for a second offense. All of the elections in our area from earlier this month have been settled, that is, except for one, those 2 town council seats in Atlantic Beach. Friday night, the town's election commission voted to have a new election. Incumbent candidates Charlene Taylor and Josephine Isom lost their seats in the November 3rd town council election. The 2 winners were write-in candidates, Carolyn Cole and Wendy Price. Taylor and Isom, along with a 3rd candidate, Paul Curry, filed protests questioning the residency of Cole and Price and citing irregularities in the election process, and the Election Commission agreed with those protests. The Concerned Citizens Group of Atlantic Beach support Cole and Price, and Saturday, its president said they are looking forward to going to court.
We already know that Wendy Price and Carolyn Cole will take their seats. You know, sure, they overturned the election, but we want to get it into the circuit court system so that we can move on through our appeals and get where we need to be.
Cole and Price have 10 days to appeal the decision. Otherwise, a new election will be set.
You're watching News Channel 15.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us for your weekend news. I'm Mo Lulengi. The South Carolina congressman under some fire for yelling "You lie" to President Barack Obama during his health care speech to Congress last week says that he's done apologizing. Democratic leaders plan to propose a resolution of disapproval this week if Representative Joe Wilson does not apologize to Congress. Basically, that resolution would put Congress on record as condemning Wilson's conduct. Wilson says that he still believes the president was misstating facts when he said illegal immigrants would not qualify for government health care.
I am not going to apologize again. I apologized to the president on Wednesday night. I was advised then that thank you. Now let's get on to a civil discussion of the issues. But I've apologized one time. The apology was accepted by the president, by the vice president, who I know. I am not apologizing again.
Now, the Joe Wilson incident is symbolic of just how divisive the health care reform issue has been, and the debate only seems to be intensifying. ABC's Rachel Martin has the latest from Washington.
The battle over health care. Rachel Martin, ABC News, Washington.
South Carolina Republican Senator Lindsey Graham weighed in on the health care debate this morning. Graham says that it seems clear to him that the White House is ready to abandon the controversial government-run option of the health care overhaul.
Well, I think the public option is dead. It's probably been dead a long time because the public is very afraid. 85% of the people with private health insurance like what they've got, and they understand if the public option is part of any reform measure, private insurers cannot compete against the government over time. I think one thing we can say, if the deficit matters...
The Republican senator says that the president has shown little sign of compromise. A vaccine for the swine flu virus could be ready much earlier than expected. Health and Human Services Secretary Kathleen Sebelius says shots could be ready as early as the first week of October. That's just a few weeks away. That would be just in time to beat the expected peak of the fall flu season. Sebelius says that the bulk of the vaccine is still scheduled for release nationwide by mid-October. She adds that the success of a one-shot dose for healthy adults will help contain the spread of the flu. A pleasant end to the weekend outside, and that has led to a really nice evening. Let's check in with